As I said earlier, each of the panelists, including myself, was part of the trip that Henrietta Fore and AID organized, and so we all were touched and moved by it. But of course, the organizations to my left all have played a much greater role than just being on that trip. Ellen Lampert, who is next, is actually one of the principals who was on that trip. And Ellen has a couple titles, but I'll just say the Executive Vice President of the Merck Company Foundation. And the one little tidbit I would add is that I think, Ellen, you had been on the job, what, 6 weeks when you were called to participate in this public-private partnership and go off to China. So, Ellen, thank you for being with us today.
Good afternoon. My experience with the public-private partnership is slightly different than Carolyn's, and I'd like to address a different aspect. Having been on the job for 6 weeks, my purpose was to begin to define for Merck how to respond to a disaster in a holistic way. Obviously, responding immediately with financial and product assistance, responding in terms of recovery and relief, but most importantly, in understanding what the culture had lost, and in the context of a public-private partnership, trying to restore some of those pieces in a way that fit as the culture was and as it wanted to become. And to do that, you really do need a public-private partnership. I was very lucky on this trip because although I represented one of the principals, Merck, I was introduced, as I was here today, as being the Senior Vice President of the Merck Company Foundation. And right away, the competitive edge, Johnson & Johnson was on this trip, Procter & Gamble were on this trip, dropped away. And the folks on our van and on the trip began to talk to me as the humanist, the philanthropist. And in the context of the public-private partnership, that brought a very different perspective for all of us. Because in truth, I represented the business as much as any of my partners, and they represented the philanthropy as much as they, as their side of the business. But it brought a balance to the bus. The other thing that happened, I think, for all of us, is that we shared a disaster together. We got on vans, and the Chinese government graciously took us in the middle of taking care of all of their folks to the site. We rode through tunnels under mountains that were still having landslides. I think we were all frightened. We watched as the army lined up along dirt roads because the highways had dropped thousands of feet below into the rivers. And we thought, oh my God, are they going to link arms to prevent our vans from falling off the road? We got to a site where, the village where 50% of the children perished in schools, and we listened to the young girl you saw with the megaphone. We listened to a mother who lost her twins, and we walked among villagers, watching them pass babies around as collective love to cure themselves, to begin to heal. And we all shared that experience, and when you share that experience, the issues that we spoke about this morning in the keynote address drop away. You stop wondering how you fit together as a partnership. And you stop wondering about what I do that distinguishes Merck from what Johnson & Johnson or P&G do to respond to the disaster. And you actually start to think like a team. Upon our return to the United States, I'm very pleased to say that Johnson & Johnson and Merck have discussed a number of times how we can partner. And one of the significant areas we're looking at is we did send a team of 4 American Chinese post-traumatic stress psychiatrists to Chengdu to meet with villagers, to talk with them, and to bring back a description of how post-traumatic stress is being addressed. And we plan to continue to work together in that realm. So in the spirit of what today's meeting is about, I would say to you, a public-private partnership does work. It may take extreme circumstances. It may take us all to think like a humanist and a business person at the same time. But it was a life-changing experience and one that really opened my eyes to what could be done. Thank you.